Him arranging things will be fine. And so it happened, Mary recalled. They had settled in the Jewish quarter. Joseph found a house and then enough work for them to pay for their stay. The Magi's gifts had proved another special help of God. The gold kept them until Joseph started earning, and then again on their return to Nazareth. The frankincense and myrrh Mary had kept. She wasn't quite sure why, but she was positive that He had given them to her for a reason and would show her what that reason was at some point. Mary brushed the sweat off her forehead and straightened up, pausing in her weeding. You wouldn't think that April could be so hot, she reflected. It wasn't always, but some years it seemed to be a part of summer instead of part of spring. It had been like that the year they had returned to Nazareth from Egypt. She remembered. Jesus had been walking by them and into everything. The journey had been a lively one. Their return had been different, she remembered. Everyone had been glad to see them, but they hadn't understood why they had been away so long. Joseph had explained that it was an unexpected opportunity that they simply had not been able to afford to pass up at the time. But he said at least 100 times, its time was over, so we came back home without regrets. And that is all he would say. She had echoed him and turned the subject to children and their ways, asking advice of the most persistent, which deflected their curiosity nicely. And gave me some really good ideas, she smiled. Jesus had been a good child, no real trouble. Though, with his energy and his interests, ranging as they did over everything he could see, touch, smell, handle, or put in his mouth, he could be worrying at times. Joseph had been a wonderful father, taking the boy into his shop as soon as he could. He could walk steadily, and so Joseph had it there. He had built the boy a small bench of his own and taught him to use tools. In fact, Joseph had made him tools that were small enough for him to handle and gave him real things to do with them. She smiled at the memory. She still had and used the breadboard he had made for her and given her with such pride. Joseph guided him as he learned and always took him just a little farther than he was quite ready to go, so he would learn how to reach beyond his present level for the next. And that, Mary thought, might have been at least part of the reason for their worst experience in that quiet time of bringing him up. It had happened the year Jesus turned 12. It had been even a hotter year that year, and they had begun to sweat freely before they had gone a day's journey in their trip to Jerusalem for the Passover feast and for his bar mitzvah. Everything had gone smoothly. The temple services had been splendid, uplifting, renewing mind and heart. And they had rejoiced at being there, at being together. It was on their way home that things had, without warning, fallen disastrously apart. She sat back on her heels, remembering how it had been. Mary felt the sun, really warm for April. Shining on her back, she took a deep breath of sweet spring air. I'm going to pause here to show you how far did they have to go. From Nazareth all the way down to Jerusalem. 10 days journey. And often they would never go through Samaria because of the Samaritans Jordan River Valley, come all the way down to Jericho, and then go up to Jerusalem. Just so we're with that's like take 10 days. And so watching the children play around the travel group as they made their way up the road, headed for Nazareth again, she smiled. She hadn't lost a single child all the time they were in Jerusalem for the Passover. And with 21 children from 3 to 12, that had to be a record. It had been her idea to have each woman keep track with 3 youngsters, instead of the usual haphazard, everyone watches all of them process they usually used. I wonder how Jesus likes traveling with the men, she wondered. Good for him. I don't doubt. He'll be an apprentice to Joseph this year, and he'll have to move more fully out of childhood then. This will give him a taste of it. But she admitted to herself that she would be very glad indeed to see him around the supper fire and sleeping in their tent. Guess I'm the one who has to let go of his childhood, she smiled. He's probably itching to be turned loose. That evening at fire, she looked around for her husband and son, but found only Joseph, who asked her cheerfully, "Was Jesus a help to you today, watching the children?" Jesus? He wasn't with us today. Didn't he go with you? She asked in an anxious voice. He shook his head, and her heart dropped. Then where is he? She demanded, feeling panic rise. He can't just have disappeared. Look, you check the fires on that side. I'll check the ones over here. I'll meet you back here. He's got to be here. When they met back at the fire, hope died. We have to go back, Mary declared. He's gotten lost along the way. We're back in the city. Yes, Joseph agreed, but not tonight. We don't know the roads, and the 2 people alone at night with all these strangers about, it's too dangerous. Tomorrow we'll probably meet another group of travelers we can attach ourselves to, and we'll be able to check as we go. That was what they did. Mary remembered nothing about the day and its end except for the wild swings of hope and fear. Surely they would find him around the next corner. Surely he wasn't lying dead in a ditch someplace or down an alley, but maybe he was. And then what would they do? How would they live?